Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm a little sick, but as they say, the show must go on. And today we're going to be talking about Vinland Saga Season 2, Episode 1. As many people will know, I'm a huge fan of Vinland Saga on this channel, so going into Season 2 of Vinland Saga, I was actually really excited for this. With all of that out of the way, thanks everybody for watching the video. I am sick, so please, if you could, give it a like. It'll make me feel a little bit better, I think. And you know, always as well, comment down below what did you think about the episode. So let's get into it. So, I mean, first off, we got to talk about this opening. It reminds me a lot of To Your Eternity's OP, which is Pink Blood. This is actually called River by Anonymous, I believe is how you pronounce their name. Music in it is absolutely incredible. This is a banger opening just in terms of its music alone. But the actual imagery of what's happening here is just so beautiful. It's so surreal, and I like how it's focused on the past versus how Vinland Saga is going to be like in this future season. And it's just, I like how it recounts things with Askeladd and Thors and Floki and Prince Canute and all of that stuff. It is just, oh my god, it's just a phenomenal opening. Probably already my favorite opening of the season, and I'm, as many people will know if they watch the King of Anime podcast, I'm not a very big OP and ED guy, and that's just because I don't watch them. Not that I actually hate or dislike them. Then we get this like really cool sequence where they're not speaking Japanese, but they're saying things like carve it. And I was just, I don't know what was happening, what exactly this was trying to portray. I think it was just trying to portray like work, you know, like just keep grinding pretty much. That's sort of what it felt like. Maybe like suffer, keep suffering, because there's a lot of suffering in the world of Vinland Saga. Not sure what that's about. We are then introduced to Einar, and Einar isn't exactly well respected amongst the ladies in his group. Of course, the ladies in his group is his mother, and of course his little sister, Lotta, which I like the name of her, by the way. Apparently, they spent a lot of time rebuilding their village after it was burnt down, and their dad actually died protecting them. And Einar even says to his mother, doesn't it frustrate you constantly being on the losing side? And she says they don't believe that they have lost and that they're on the losing side, is look at the position they are in now. And all I can think of is like, wow, what a positive and mature outlook for someone to go through so much and to be able to retain that happiness. Most of the times when people go through very traumatic events like that, it sort of changes them forever. But for her, it seems to have given her some wisely perspective, which is pretty awesome. Sure, it may be a bad thing, but that bad thing may be a good thing because it may lead to empowering yourself of some kind. Then we have this sequence, which I originally thought was a flashback, but isn't. They're all hiding in the bushes because there is a Viking attack. I like the detail of Lotta having a panic attack during this, and Einar just placing his hand upon her head, kind of reassuring her. And then they all just run through the forest to try to get away, basically, because they're like, well, there's no way this situation can actually be, you know, salvageable of any kind. We're not going to stick behind and try to defend the honor of the village. It would be very dumb in that case. And so they all run through the forest, but the mother is actually shot by an arrow. And this, honestly, I thought all three of them were going to get away. I know what you're saying, death flags everywhere, but I thought because of the sheer amount of negativity and death of season 1 and the way they kind of showed off the positive and hopeful message that the mother had, I thought for sure, you know, like these three would get away and they'd all, like, I don't know, be sold into slavery, like how Einar eventually was or something. But no, she's shot in the arrow and she eventually dies. But what I love about this is that she does the right thing, punches Einar, and then grabs him by the shirt of the collar of his shirt and tells him to escape and save Lotta. And this is when it just goes from bad to worse, because as you see this, Einar just kind of, he's in shock. He just experienced his mother die right before his eyes, and not only that, but was, you know, viciously murdered. And then the Vikings catch up to them, and you're just saying at the screen at this point, run, Einar, take Lotta and run. So they take Lotta, Lotta starts to fight back. She takes the hairpin out of her hair and stabs the dude in the back, but angers the guy and gets slashed across the chest. And in that moment, as he's kind of witnessing everything go down, Einar's he just goes into this absolute pure rage. It reminded me so much of Thorfinn from season 1 of Vinland Saga, and plays into that theme of, if this character goes and moves in the direction of revenge, plays once again back into that theme of revenge not being good for really anybody or anything. So I really love the detail of these first scenes. It was just really nice, and cannot say enough good about how they started this episode out. Also, there is a quote in the middle of this episode from Hvalmel, I believe is how you pronounce their name. Not familiar with the words of this man or woman, but I will read it, the quote they showed here, because I actually think it's quite important. "A fir on a barren land withers, with neither bark nor leaves. So too does the man loved by none. Why should he live a long life?" Let's just break this down. A fir on a barren land withers with neither bark nor leaves. Shows there is some sort of vulnerability, that the purpose of a, of a plant, of a fir, so to speak, is to prosper and have a lot of green around them and shrubbery and even more firs. But it's not. The land that is within is barren. There is no hope for it to grow. And so it withers. Now, comparing this to a man or just a person in general, it's saying that a person requires essentially, in my opinion, love, support, a good environment. And if we compare that to the previous season with Thorfinn was not in a good environment. And so, of course, he withered. And the question of why should he have a long life, it's not saying it, in my opinion, is very pessimistically. I think it's saying it more of like, well, going by this logic, how can a person live a long life if they're not experiencing these things, like these very human and innate human desires? I just thought that was really interesting, and of course the cough syrup really helps. We now cut to sometime later. Einar is now a slave on a ship, as he's in this situation where they're traveling across the seas, there's rough waters, and there's some sort of infection going around. Their mouth is being swollen, and they're just basically dying. So they see this girl who's dying, and they're like, yep, she's a lost cause, she's not gonna get better. So they rather cruelly take the girl out, toss her overboard, and she drowns. And that is really dark. I don't know what other way to spin that. I don't think you really can. It's just they had to do what they had to do. That's what the times were. They didn't have, medicine on ships like that. They would, on long voyages of sea, they wouldn't have barrels full of water. They would have barrels full of rum because the water went bad. So that's just kind of like, that would sound crazy nowadays, but you got to think about it. Back in those days, that was just sort of the norm. And this was one of those things where it's like, she's not getting any better. We can't have people getting affected. So they throw her overboard. Also, it's just a cruel life as a slave anyways, because as we see later on, after Einar breaks away from his group and tries to steal food, he's tracked down again and he's lashed. And as he's being lashed, he's clearly on the verge of losing his mind from all the pain. And he talks about how he needs to just stay alive. Good things will come. He just needs to keep telling himself to survive and all things will be good, which is when he comes upon Leif Erikson. Now, originally, I thought this happened right before the last couple of episodes of season 1, because there is a very similar scene where Leif Erikson is like, I'm looking for a blonde boy. His name is Thorfinn. And we see a similar situation here where he's in front of Einar and he's talking to the slave dealer. Hey, if you see a slave, Thorfinn, buy him. I will buy double what you pay for him. And while this is happening, Einar is saying to himself, wow, this Thorfinn guy, he's very lucky for being valued and just in general being looked for. And that really puts a lot of perspective into Einar and as well Thorfinn, because Thorfinn had all of these people who loved and adored him, looking for him, wanting to save him. And then you have Einar, where all of his family is dead. Nobody cares for him. Nobody will ever be looking for him. He is a slave. He is doomed to probably die a slave. That's just the way it is. And so Einar is sold to a farmer pretty much. And what's interesting is as he's being told he's going to go work on a farm, he has a flashback when farm is mentioned. Seems like he has some sort of awful memory with farms. I imagine maybe he was already a slave before this and the time skip that it had. Or maybe it was just a bad memory of many years ago before he was a slave. Something traumatic happened to him on a farm. I don't know, but it's clear that we're going to find out. And so they come upon the farm and he is filled with wonder at the beautiful sight of this farm. And oh my God, it's like, it's golden. It looks like, well, honestly, it looks like Valhalla. And so when he's looking at this, he asks his mother, talks to her in his head basically, and is like, are you sure you're right about not losing here? Because it's just such a beautiful, amazing sight. And it was a good way to take the mother's words from earlier in the episode and kind of round them out. And then this is when, at the very end, he's introduced to his fellow slave, Thorfinn. And oh boy, does Thorfinn not look like he's happy. Oh my God. You thought season 1 Thorfinn had a resting bitch face? Holy shit. This Thorfinn is a whole nother level. So in my opinion, this first episode of Vinland Saga season 2 was absolutely phenomenal, and it took me a long time to get through this video, a lot of different takes. So those are my thoughts. Please tell me in the comments down below, what did you think of Vinland Saga Season 2, Episode 1? And of course, check out my Vinland Saga Season 1 recap if you haven't already. And as well, subscribe for all of my future Vinland Saga content. Thanks for watching, everyone. See you later. Bye-bye.